Hello and welcome to the video. This is one of the latest quadcopters from HGLRC. This is the KT20. They're classing it as a 2-inch FPV racing drone. I have the analog version here, but you can also get it with digital HD system in, as well as actually order the frame itself if you want to build one. Now, I've looked at a few of the recent Cinequad style models from HGL this year. I looked at the Veyron 25 CR in August, and I liked the Sector 52 CR in May, as well as others from lots of other different guys. So do check out my reviews if you want to do comparisons. HGLRC is one of those manufacturers that's been putting a lot of effort into the models they make and seem determined to have a quad for everyone. This is their latest 2-inch racing drone, in inverted commas, that's designed to also fit an action camera if you want. Racing drone, is it? Well, it's got the bumpers on it. It's designed to look like a little go-kart, and it's clearly designed to be a compact quad that could carry a camera, but also to survive the knocks and to be safe to fly indoors and out. On the website, they claim that it's a cool and unique go-kart shape. Well, it's certainly different from anything else that I've looked at, although it is similar from lots of the Cinequads that I've looked at over the past couple of months. It says it's got a long flight time, even with a naked GoPro. Let's see if that's the case in this review. This is a very small, lightweight model, but long flight time? Let's see. Small and light 2-inch frame, suitable for flying indoors and outdoors, and it also features an XT30. But the big question for me is, how's it fly? And when they claim long flight time, how long is long? So while I unbox this, again, this is the analog version that I have here. Let's go through the specs. So this weighs, it reckons, about 83.2 grams. Here's actually what mine weighs on the screen now. Again, it's using the HGLRC KT20 frame, wheelbase of 90 millimeters. Size is about 130 by 138 millimeters. Inside this thing, there's a Zeus 10 all-in-one 2 to 6S flight controller that will have the Zeus F4 Evo target on it. It's paired in this analog version to the Zeus Nano 350 milliwatt VTX. I really like these units. I've used them in lots of the builds here myself, and they're pretty bulletproof. Has an IPEX connector for the antenna. It'll run PIT 2500, 200 and 350 milliwatts. The camera at the front is a Cadix Ant Eco camera, and then we have Aeolus, still not sure if that's how you say it, 1303.5 4500 kV motors. Those will support both 3 and 4S's. This model is really designed for 4S. Now you have all these nice colourful bumpers in here, and you can decide to put them on. There is a load of spare props, which is great because the props do point downwards. If you land on something and catch a prop, you are going to damage it. Mine came with the FreeSky XM Plus in here. You can get it with lots of different receivers, as well as I mentioned at the beginning, you can also get it with the DJI HD system installed as well. This little nut and bolt is for the front. That's so you can pop in an action camera of some description. As we'll see in a minute, it's got super duper levels of power, so you're going to have to be really careful if you want to put an action camera on this. It's going to feel a little sluggish. And then we have the manual for the all-in-one that's part of it. Recommended battery for this is a 550 to 850 milliamp hour battery. I'm using a 650 milliamp hour 4S battery for my testing here. Plugging it into Betaflight, everything looks good. There is something in the data flash, which means it's been tested before shipped. Tick V good. Tramp is on soft serial, and UART2 is set for the serial receiver for S-Bus. Motor directions reversed, pretty standard on this class. D-Shot 600, 8K gyro, 4K PID loop frequency. This is all very standard stuff, isn't it? S-Bus receiver. In here, air mode is turned on fully. Telemetry isn't turned on, but then we don't need it for that receiver. Interestingly, the D-Shot beacon configuration isn't. Maybe think about turning that on to help you find it in the grass. Battery and current look like that. Then PID tuning, this is what it looks like. The tune is very, very gentle and sedate, as you're going to see in a minute. There's absolutely zero surprises. It's a very, very easy little model to fly. Receiver, you're going to have to come in here to play with everything. Modes, there's almost nothing set up. You're definitely going to have to come in here to configure it how you want. And then in the on-screen display, this is a little bit messy. You're definitely going to have to move things around. Be aware that the Cadix Ant camera is NTSC, so you're not going to have the full screen to pull your bits on. Video transmitter stuff works great. I'll put a link to the dump and diff file below, so if you want to go and see how all the settings are done, or you have one of these and you've messed up the configuration, it's there for you. So let's talk about what it's like to fly. This is the flying weight with the battery that I have here. So comfortably under 250 gram limit, if that's important to you. However, in most places, the need to have things registered is negated by the fact that you've got a camera on anyway. And here is a quick little bit of footage with me hovering it around indoors just to make sure everything is working. Now, this is hovering at about 40% throttle. So rather than hover at the 25%, which is far more common for models of this class, it gives you an awful lot more thrust and power to be able to carry things like a camera, but it does mean that the battery is consumed very quickly because it doesn't have a lot of efficiency. The binding process is pretty straightforward and easy because the USB port is actually presented at the top of the model. And again, this is one of those tricky mornings for cameras where the sun is relatively low in the sky. It's late autumn here in the UK going into winter. The trees have lost all of their foliage. Very light wind, and this thing is whipping around without any problems at all flying outdoors. Now, the throttle percentage is in the top right hand corner, and you can see how much current is being pulled in the bottom left hand corner. Flying around, it's pulling anything from about 8 to 11 amps, and the hover point is about 40% throttle. So if you're going to put an action camera on this, it is going to feel very, very sluggish. Tune is good, but I would say it's aimed at smoother flying that will suit a beginner. It's very tricky to really get in and out of trouble with this. The camera performance, as you can see here from the Ant, is I would describe as distinctly average. I'm not a fan of the Ant cameras myself. Again, this is an NTSC setting, so we don't have the same kind of resolution as with the PAL transmission, and it just doesn't look very good. There's lots of grain, the color is okay, but in terms of how it's handling the bright light, it's not doing a great job with the dynamic range. In terms of flying experience, it is very, very gentle and very easy to fly. I think aimed at a beginner, this could be a very easy way to get into the hobby, to maybe have indoor flying, and then also to be able to progress to a little bit of outdoors when the weather's not too bad. Flying time on that 650 milliamp hour battery that I'm using here is only about 3.5 minutes, so not a long flight time. And again, this flight in particular is one without an action camera. If you add that additional weight, then you're going to sacrifice time in the air. And be aware that you are going to get a lot less time in the air if you go for the HD version, because it's going to consume current from the battery, plus it's also going to be a lot heavier. As I mentioned before, this kind of class of model, along with things like the whoops and the tiny whoops, can make really nice little models to learn to fly on. But this one has an interesting split between the amount of power that it produces and the efficiency. They've toned back the thrust, which gives a slightly longer flight time. I like the fact that it's using a regular XT30 plug. I like the fact that it's easy to fly indoors, and it can fly outdoor without too many problems as well. I also like the fact that they haven't followed that silly fad of having lots and lots of blades on the props to try and produce the thrust they need in the limited space that they have and consume the battery in 2.5 minutes flat. The noise when flying is not a lot. Once it's about 50-60 feet away, it's getting harder to hear. So it's a little bit quieter than some of the others that I've tried. And the robustness is good too, with the plastics of the frame flexing slightly, and it's absorbed all the little bumps and crashes while I've been playing with it here without even breaking a sweat. Camera performance is average thanks to that Ant camera, and the flight performance is good but definitely not a hot rod. If you are coming into the hobby and you're looking for a model to practice with and to have a go at, this would be a great first or second quad. The tune again is nice and conservative, which does make me feel like that's more of the pilot that's going to get the most out of it. Be aware that you will need a battery with a decent C rating for this, and those downward facing props will only like to land on something that is super flat. If you land on anything with any kind of rocks or stuff stuck up, then the props are going to strike them and take damage. So it's a good job there's as many spares as there are in the box. So this is another nice little compact model from the team at HGLRC. That higher hover throttle and balance between power and speed, I like the fact that this will give us slightly longer flight time. Would I class it as long flight time? Definitely not. They couldn't have done a lot more to reduce the weight, that's for sure. This thing is absolutely skeletonized. It is good for indoor flying and, as I said, capable of hooting around outdoors if you want to brave the elements, but personally I wouldn't fly it with an action camera on. That means that you're not going to have enough oomph to get in and out of trouble if you find that you're flying too close to an obstacle. The camera is the letdown here. The Ant just isn't a great camera, and I wish there was another alternative that manufacturers like HGLRC would go to. But if you want a gentle flyer that can be a way to learn and then progress outdoors, like you can with some more powerful whoops, and you don't mind the camera, then this is worth a look. For me, I'd consider a whoop if you want to get in and learn to fly. Whoops, of course, aren't designed to carry action cameras where this is. But again, my concern would be putting an action camera on this would make it incredibly sluggish and really reduce the limited flight time that you already get. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.